Rachel chuckled as she signed divorce papers, her confidence practically dripping from every movement. Moments later, the judge began reading aloud David's financial standing, and Rachel's grin widened. "I'm going to destroy you in court, David. Half of everything you build is about to become mine," she sneered, her voice echoing with triumph. What she didn't realize was that the man sitting calmly across from her had already set in motion something few could ever imagine, an act that would change the entire course of this divorce. What unfolded next would make anyone rethink everything they believed about love, wealth, and revenge. Before diving deeper, let me ask you, have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did you face it? Share your thoughts below. David Miller was a man admired by many in Austin, Texas. He hadn't inherited riches. Instead, he built his business brick by brick, fueled by late nights, determination, and an unshakable dream. Success didn't come easy, but eventually his small venture grew into a respected company. Still, for David, money was never the greatest treasure. Love and family meant far more. And to him, Rachel had once been that treasure. She was captivating, graceful, and in the early years of their marriage, she seemed devoted. They laughed together, dreamt of a future side by side, and shared in each other's struggles. Back then, David believed she was a soulmate, but over time, Rachel changed. The woman who once encouraged him now ridiculed his efforts. The loving partner who once held his hand now pulled away with cold detachment. Behind her charm, her heart had grown distant. What she didn't know was that David wasn't as blind as she assumed, and her betrayal would soon cost her far more than she could ever bargain for. David's beginnings were far from luxurious. Raised in a modest neighborhood by his mother, Margaret, he learned early the value of integrity and persistence. She taught him that true worth wasn't in gold or possessions, but in hard work and honesty. Inspired by her lessons, David spent years building a company from scratch, turning it into success without ever losing humility. When he met Rachel, he believed she was the answer to his prayers. She was intelligent, radiant, and supportive, at least in the beginning. She stood by him when times were tough, and together they built dreams of a bright future. Their marriage started with laughter, affection, and hope. But as David's wealth expanded, Rachel's attitude shifted. Gratitude gave way to demands. Her spending became reckless. Her tone grew sharper, and insults replaced encouragement. Their once warm home became a place filled with tension and silence. David, who once felt blessed beyond measure, now felt utterly alone. In his pain, he confided in his childhood friend Mark Thompson. Over coffee one evening, Mark gave him a warning. "Protect yourself, brother. Not everyone smiling with you is truly on your side." Those words stuck with David. Mark advised him to quietly safeguard everything he owned, his savings, his properties, even his company shares, by transferring them into his mother's name. At first, David resisted, still clinging to hope that Rachel would return to the woman he had fallen for. But as her coldness grew, he reluctantly accepted Mark's advice. Without Rachel knowing, David placed every asset under Margaret's ownership, protecting himself from the storm he felt approaching. As months passed, the signs of betrayal became undeniable. Rachel stayed out late with flimsy excuses. She clutched her phone like a secret she couldn't risk sharing. Her once tender gaze was gone, replaced with apathy. Conversations turned into arguments or silence. The warmth had vanished. One evening, unable to ignore his suspicions any longer, David followed her car from a distance. His chest tightened as he watched her arrive in an apartment complex. Minutes later, through a window, he saw her wrapped in another man's arms, laughing and holding him close, the same way she once held David. The sight shattered him. Tears blurred his vision as he realized their love story had ended long before she asked for a divorce. When Rachel finally confessed, she didn't bother with guilt or remorse. She was unapologetic, even smug, confident that divorce would grant her half of David's fortune. But she had no idea that every penny, every asset, every investment had already been transferred to Margaret. For David, the real wound wasn't financial. It was emotional. The nights they once shared, the dreams they built, all had been discarded by the woman he gave his heart to. The only comfort came from Margaret, who listened patiently, held him through his grief, and reminded him of what true, unconditional love looked like. Her wisdom healed him little by little. She reminded him that a man's true value isn't measured in wealth, but in how he endures life's hardships. Through her, David relearned the meaning of loyalty, the kind that never abandons you. The day of the divorce hearing finally arrived. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as Rachel walked in, her heels striking the floor like she was already victorious. She smirked at her friends in the back, convinced she was a moment away from wealth and freedom. Sitting across from her, David remained calm. His face betrayed no anger, only quiet dignity. For him, this wasn't about money anymore. It was a final farewell to the woman he once cherished. Rachel picked up the pen with a smug laugh, signing the divorce papers as though she had already won. But when the judge began reading the financial records, her confidence cracked. The verdict was clear. David Miller had no assets under his name, no properties, no accounts, no company shares. Everything was legally under Margaret Miller's ownership. Rachel's face drained of color. Her hands trembled as she realized the empire she thought she was about to claim no longer existed. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. The fortune she had counted on was gone. David didn't gloat or taunt her. He simply looked at her with quiet sorrow, remembering the woman she once was and grieving the love they had lost. Rachel stormed out of the courthouse, her heels clattering against the pavement. Outside, the man she had been seeing was waiting, but the moment he realized she was leaving empty-handed, his smile faded. Without a word, he turned and walked away, abandoning her on the courthouse steps. Her world, once built on greed and pride, crumbled into loneliness. Inside, David found comfort not in victory but in peace. His mother embraced him. Mark stood beside him, and for the first time in a long time, David felt free. Life wasn't easy in the days that followed, but it was calm. He spent time with his mother, taking walks, sharing stories, and realizing that love is not always romantic. It's the steady, quiet presence of someone who never leaves your side. Through Margaret's church, he eventually met Emily Carter, a compassionate school counselor with a gentle smile and kind heart. Unlike Rachel, Emily cared nothing for his status or wealth. She cared about his story, his struggles, and his dreams. Slowly, their bond grew, showing David what true love felt like, steady, supportive, and pure. In losing Rachel, he had lost someone who never truly loved him. But in the end, he gained something greater: peace, freedom, and the chance to experience a love that was real. So now, I ask you, what cuts deeper, the loss of wealth or the loss of love? Would you rather be valued for who you are or for what you own? If this story touched your heart, comment below. True love is priceless. Because in the end, money can vanish in a moment, but love, real love, is what makes life worth living.